we want to go to the other circle, a smaller circle. We notice the largest. Now we're going to notice a smaller circle. And then, of course, we're going to go to the smallest circle. The final conflict is not only going to be over God's law. The final conflict is going to have also to do with the first table of God's holy law. The first 4 commandments that describe our duty towards God. Now notice what we find in Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse 4. Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse 4. By the way, this is the central confession of Judaism. And it says this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Is this the summary of the first table of the law? Do you remember that Jesus quoted this when He said that this is the first and great commandment? It actually summarizes the first 4 commandments, our duty towards God. You see, if you love God, you're not going to have other gods. If you love God, you're not going to have idols. If you love God, you're going to respect His name. If you love God, you're going to keep His holy Sabbath. Then the last 6 commandments have to do with a horizontal relationship between us and our fellow human beings. Now, I want you to notice something very interesting. Immediately after giving this quotation where it says that we should love God above all things, then God says where these words are supposed to be written. Notice, beginning at verse 6 of Deuteronomy chapter 6. And these words, which I command you today, shall be in your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. Those are the words that we read. The summary of the first table of the law, the first 4 commandments. Where were they supposed to be placed? Notice verse 8. You shall bind them as a sign, where? On your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. Now, I want you to notice that this table of the law, the one that has to do with our duty towards God, is to be placed in 2 places. It doesn't say on your forehead or on your hand. It says in your forehead and in your hand. We're going to notice in Revelation that the mark of the beast is placed on the forehead or on the hand. Here God says you need to place these words, which we quoted, between your eyes, which is the forehead, and also on your hand. That's a very important distinction. So you'll notice that it's the first 4 commandments that are placed where? That are placed as frontlets between your eyes and also on your hand. I want you to notice something else that is very interesting. In Revelation, the final controversy has to do with worship. Time and again in Revelation, we find that the final issue will be concerning worship. Let me ask you, which table of the law has to do especially with worship? It's the first table of the law. See, if you worship God, you don't have other gods. If you worship God, you don't have images of God. If you worship God, you don't take His name in vain. If you worship God, you keep the Sabbath as the sign of the Creator. The first table of the law has to do with worship. So if Revelation says that the end time controversy is concerning worship, it must be that the final conflict has to do with which table, especially. It has to do with the first table of the law. Let me read you some of those statements that speak about the issue of worship as being the main point of contention. Revelation 13, verse 4. It says, so they worshipped the dragon, who gave authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him?